My husband passed away unexpectedly. Devastated, I shut myself away for 2 years. Meanwhile, my penniless cousin, a victim of domestic abuse, exploited the supplementary credit card I had given her and transformed herself into a wealthy socialite with a kind reputation. When I finally gathered the strength to start over, I discovered she had declared me mentally ill. No one dared to approach me. In the end, she even conspired with the housekeeper to imprison and torture me to death, completely replacing my life. Now, given a second chance, I stared at the dazzling imposter before me. Perfect. The higher she climbs, the harder she'll fall. Emily is so elegant and generous. She's been sponsoring every single one of our kindergarten events. It must have been at least a few $100,000 over these past 2 years. Absolutely. We're so grateful to her. My son getting to attend the same school as your little gentleman is nothing short of a blessing. My mind was a whirlwind of chaos, but as I opened my eyes, I saw Isabella basking in the compliments of a group of mothers, her smug expression radiating satisfaction. She was dressed to perfection, wearing the latest couture sent to me by a designer and adorned with my expensive diamond jewelry. The gnawing hunger in my stomach reminded me that I had been reborn. I thought back to the last life, when this very woman knelt before my door, begging me to take her in. Back then, her husband had been abusing her, and her own family refused to help. I took pity on her and allowed her to work as a maid in my home. Not long after, my husband was killed in a car accident by a drug addict. I was inconsolable and shut myself away, giving her the opportunity to take over the entire household under the guise of being my cousin. She became known to the outside world as Mrs. Emily. She even made my 1-year-old son call her Mom. The house staff and drivers treated her as the mistress of the house, forgetting about me, the real Mrs. Emily. For a bit of money, they even conspired with her to torture me to death. In the end, Isabella completely replaced me and lived the life she could never have dreamed of. Now, watching Isabella bask in the limelight, the first thing I did was cancel the $100,000 monthly supplementary card. Spending my money to steal my life? She could dream on. The kindergarten director approached with a smile, holding out an invoice. Mrs. Emily, here's the expense breakdown for this event. Could you please settle it for us? Thank you so much. Without even glancing at the bill, Isabella smiled lightly. Oh, no need to be so formal. I'll pay right away. She elegantly pulled out the supplementary card I had given her. The director stood by with the card reader, waiting. But a few seconds later, her smile froze. The card reader displayed insufficient funds. A flash of panic crossed her eyes as she scanned the crowd and spotted me in the corner. Her gaze pleaded for me to transfer money. I calmly turned and left, not sparing her another glance. Today was supposed to be my turn to attend the parent-teacher meeting. However, Isabella insisted that she had been handling things with the director all year and was more familiar with the process. I didn't argue and came along, curious to see my son's school. I hadn't expected to witness Isabella throwing my money around to boost her image. Hundreds of thousands of dollars in a year, just for a few compliments. This kindergarten was the most prestigious and high-end in the area. Every student here was either the son of a CEO or the daughter of a wealthy heir. Did she really think she was impressing anyone? True wealth kept a low profile. As I stepped out of the building, my phone vibrated incessantly. After letting it ring over 10 times, I leisurely answered. Emily, what's the meaning of this? Why isn't there any money on the card? Transfer some to me immediately. Do you want your son to lose face in front of all these wealthy moms? Are you doing this on purpose to embarrass me? She was absolutely right. I was doing this on purpose. Without a word, I hung up and blocked her number. Let her keep pretending. Let's see how long she can keep it up. My son is just a kid. What does he care about face? The only person embarrassed hears her. Minutes later, a man hurriedly carried Isabella out of the building. I took a closer look. Oh, how amusing. It was none other than Marcus, the deputy CEO of the Lucas Corporation. I had only met him once. I rarely showed up at the company, so naturally, they didn't recognize me. As he passed by, he glanced at me dismissively. I recognize you. You're Isabella's maid, aren't you? Mrs. Emily has fainted, and you're just standing here? Shouldn't you call the driver to take her to the hospital? I stood there for a long moment, stunned, before recalling that in my previous life, Isabella had claimed my identity. To the few people who saw me, she would tell them I was her maid, taken in out of pity. Whenever I tried to refute her, she would threaten me with my son. Emily, think about your son, she would say. I glanced at Isabella in Marcus's arms. Her complexion was rosy, fainted, my foot. It was obvious she was faking it. No money to pay the bill? Then just faint. I slowly climbed into the luxury car. Just as Marcus was about to place Isabella inside, I slammed the door shut. He pounded on the window, yelling, "How dare you, a mere maid, treat Mrs. Emily like this? Just wait until she wakes up. She'll deal with you then." He then turned to the driver, Walter, and knocked on his window. "Open the door. Kick that maid out and take Mrs. Emily to the hospital. She's fainted." Walter, the driver, was the husband of Martha, our longtime housekeeper. In my previous life, it was the two of them and Isabella who conspired to take my life. And now, just like before, he quickly opened the door, jumped out of the car, and ordered me fiercely, "Get out. I need to take my wife to the hospital." I crossed my legs, rolled down the car window halfway, and asked him nonchalantly, "Are you serious?" He was taken aback, clearly not expecting my response. In my previous life, after my husband passed away, I was utterly despondent, uninterested in everything and unwilling to confront them. This gave them the illusion that I was someone they could manipulate at will. Marcus, who was holding Isabella in his arms, seemed to be growing impatient. Isabella, feigning unconsciousness, slyly opened her eyes for a moment before quickly shutting them again. Meanwhile, the wealthy ladies from the neighborhood started gathering, watching this spectacle unfold. Wow, the help in this household sure has guts. Sitting in the car while leaving the lady of the house outside. Exactly. I heard that Emily has a particularly unruly servant. Probably some distant relative she can't afford to offend. Could it be her? The women exchanged sneers, each word dripping with disdain. Only one lady, who had remained silent up until now, finally spoke up, "You all should hold your tongues. From what I see, that so-called servant carries herself with remarkable poise. And did you notice what she's wearing?" The others leaned in, peering through the car window at me. Pfft, no brand labels. Clearly some cheap flea market outfit. Exactly. Now look at what Emily's wearing, this year's exclusive high fashion collection. Money can't even buy that. I smirked inwardly. These women would never get the chance to wear this flea market outfit in their lifetimes. Just then, the same lady who had defended me earlier added, "You only recognize labels." To me, her outfit looks like a custom piece from Master Lewis. I glanced at her again, intrigued. Not bad. Out of all these women, she was the only one sharp enough to notice. Custom designs like this weren't something just anyone could wear. Meanwhile, Marcus kept barking orders. "Walter, drag her out of the car right now. Don't delay Bella's treatment." Walter, eager to please, immediately opened the car door. "Get out. Take a cab back yourself." Oh, how wonderful. Here was this driver, eating my food but smashing my bowl. I stepped out of the car, but not before planting the heel of my stiletto squarely on his foot. Scram. He winced in pain, his face flushed as he protested, "How dare you? I'm the driver for the lady of the house. Who are you to tell me to leave? Clearly, no amount of reasoning would get through to him. It seemed Isabella had been very generous with her bribes over the past 2 years to earn such unwavering loyalty. I stepped on his other foot for good measure, watching as he hopped around clutching his toes in pain. Marcus, meanwhile, was about to put Isabella into the car when I opened the driver's door, slammed on the gas, and left them choking in a cloud of exhaust fumes. I could hear Walter and Marcus shouting angrily behind me, and I also noticed the shocked expressions on the faces of the wealthy ladies. Which household help would dare to act so audaciously? I imagine they'll figure it out soon enough. By tomorrow, word will undoubtedly spread through their social circles, exposing Isabella as the fraud she truly is. When I pulled into the driveway, Martha hurried over with a fawning smile to open the car door. "Madam, you're back." Her smile froze when she saw the empty back seat and realized I had been driving. Her tone immediately turned sour. "Why are you driving? And where's my boss? Why didn't Madam return with you?" I stared her down. "Martha, do you even remember who the lady of this house is?" She froze for a moment before reluctantly correcting herself. "I'm sorry, madam. It's been a habit these past 2 years." I slammed the car door shut. "Let your husband know he doesn't need to come to work anymore." Panic flashed across her face as she grabbed my hand. "Madam, you can't fire my husband. He's getting old. It'd be hard for him to find another job." I sneered. "Why not? Driving for Isabella seems like a great fit for him." She was about to plead further when I shot her a glare. "Say one more word, and you won't need to come back either." She fell silent, though her eyes burned with resentment and anger. Of course, she was unwilling to accept this outcome. But that's exactly why I wanted her to stay, to witness Isabella's downfall firsthand and regret her choices. Not long after, Isabella returned with Marcus and, of course, Walter tagged along. He came stomping toward me, demanding an explanation. "Emily, you can't fire me." I laughed. "Oh, why not? Give me one good reason." He glanced at Isabella for support. "Madam, you tell her. Does she even have the authority to fire me in this house? I only take orders from you." Martha quickly pulled him aside, whispering, "Stop it. Don't say any more." But Walter wasn't backing down. "What's there to be afraid of? For the past 2 years, this house has been run by Madam. She's the one in charge. I don't have to listen to Emily, that sickly invalid." Well, how bold." I turned to Isabella, curious to see how she'd back them up. Even Marcus's expression shifted slightly as he asked her, "Bella, what's going on with this servant's attitude? It sounds like there's more to the story." Isabella immediately put on an air of magnanimity. "She's my distant cousin. Her family's struggling financially, and I couldn't bear to turn her away. But clearly, my moment of kindness has made her arrogant." Huh, what a blatant liar. I knew exactly where her confidence came from. She thought that by controlling Lucas, my son, she could manipulate me. But Lucas had long since been moved to a safe place where she couldn't reach him. Isabella had no leverage over me anymore. Marcus, ever the fool, believed her every word. He nearly jabbed a finger in my face as he shouted, "You filthy servant. Don't think for a second that Bella's kindness means you can do whatever you want. Get your hands off me." I slapped Marcus's hand away forcefully. "Try that again, and I swear I'll break it." Marcus, however, wasn't about to back down. This was his golden opportunity to prove his loyalty. "Using my money to fake wealth? Watch me expose your true colors." Isabella, worried that Marcus might see through her lies, threw herself into his arms, feigning weakness. "Marcus, I don't feel well. I can't stand her. She's sick. Can I stay at your place for the night?" Marcus was all too eager. In his mind, Winning Isabella meant securing 60% of the Lucas family's shares. What could possibly be more important than that? Nothing. Overjoyed, he carried Isabella out of the room. Before leaving, he shot me a menacing glare. Behave yourself. Otherwise, I could end you and no one would care. You're just a lowly servant. Who would even notice? He was right. In my past life, that's exactly how I died, unnoticed, unavenged. But things are different now. Walter was about to leave with Isabella, but Martha stopped him. Where do you think you're going? Have you forgotten who the real head of this household is? Walter sneered, looking at me with disdain. And so what if she's the head? Everyone knows Isabella calls the shots around here. She doubled our salaries. Of course, I'll listen to her. Doubled salaries? How amusing. Let's see how Isabella manages that without access to my secondary credit card. I picked up my phone and made a call, my tone calm and deliberate. Starting tomorrow, stop all financial support for Walter's son. No more tuition, no more living expenses. I'm done footing the bill. Before I could hang up, Martha panicked. Her son, currently studying overseas, lived a life of luxury that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. And Walter? He was willing to betray me for a mere pay raise from Isabella. Ma'am, please. Have mercy. Don't cut off my son's funding. Without it, he'll have to drop out. And how is that my problem? He's not my son, and my money doesn't grow on trees. Why should I let you squander it? Martha fell to her knees, tears streaming as she begged. Ma'am, please, for the sake of my years of service to this family, don't do this. The late Mrs. Lucas promised to fund his education. You can't go back on her word. Oh, but I can. What are you going to do about it? I thought back to the last life, when she had helped Isabella force-feed me spoiled food, made me drink urine, and even shoved the vilest things into my mouth. My anger boiled. And now she had the audacity to ask for my help? Not a chance. Don't worry. I won't pay. Isabella will. Isn't she your ma'am now, Walter? Why don't you go ask her? Walter, fuming, pulled Martha to her feet. Let's go. We don't need to put up with this. Isabella's far kinder than her. She'll pay for my son's education without hesitation. Martha hesitated. But it's hundreds of thousands a year. Our salaries are nothing compared to that. Walter scoffed. Haven't you seen how much she spends at those charity galas? She drops hundreds of thousands like it's pocket change. Don't worry. After everything we've done for her, she owes us this much. Reluctantly, Martha allowed herself to be led away. Good riddance. Trash belongs out of sight. I checked the baby monitor and saw my son sleeping soundly, relief washing over me. Tomorrow, there'd be a bigger battle to fight, and I needed to be ready. The next morning, I prepared myself. There was only an hour left before Isabella would arrive with her entourage to declare me mentally unstable. I calmly called Victor, then dressed and applied a flawless, composed look. Waiting patiently on the couch, I braced myself for the showdown. Right on schedule, Isabella arrived, flanked by Walter, Martha, and several men in white coats. Seeing me so collected, Isabella faltered for a moment, but quickly recovered. Doctor, that's her. My cousin. She's been mentally unstable ever since her abusive husband left her. Please examine her thoroughly. The doctor hesitated, standing a safe distance from me. Are you certain she's mentally unwell? She seems quite composed. Walter chimed in immediately. She's faking it, doctor. You don't know what she's like when she snaps. She nearly attacked us with a knife. We barely escaped. In my past life, they had provoked me by bringing up Lucas, driving me to the brink. I had lashed out, and in my frenzied state, they had all the evidence they needed to label me insane. With that diagnosis, Isabella had the perfect excuse to lock me away and torment me at her leisure. This time, the doctor hesitated, his professional ethics urging him to be thorough. He stepped closer, observing me intently. But I already knew the outcome. These doctors were in Isabella's pocket. Whether or not I had a mental illness was irrelevant. The conclusion had been decided long before they arrived. All they needed was the slightest excuse to declare me unfit. I remained calm, letting the doctor go through the motions of his examination. Silent and unresisting, I watched as they pretended to scrutinize me. Finally, the lead doctor stepped back and delivered his verdict. "Ma'am, this woman does exhibit symptoms of psychological instability. I recommend immediate institutionalization or confinement at home to minimize her contact with others." Of course, just as expected. With a few simple words, I'd been labeled mentally ill. So this is how easy it was to lose your freedom. Isabella's satisfaction was written all over her face. "Thank you, doctor. We don't want to trouble the hospital. After all, she is my sister. Let her stay at home. I assure you we will look after her and make sure she doesn't pose a threat to public safety." The doctor packed up his things, ready to leave. Isabella waved her hand, which was adorned with my jade bracelet, and commanded, "Walter, Martha, lock her in the basement so she doesn't harm anyone." Walter, grinning with satisfaction, approached me, reaching out to grab me. Without hesitation, I smashed an ashtray into his forehead. It hit perfectly, and blood began to trickle down. Martha screamed in panic, "Murder! Murder!" But Isabella only appeared more pleased, though she pretended to be frightened and stepped back quickly. "See? She really is insane. Hurry, someone lock her in the basement." Several security guards, brought by Marcus, entered the room. Marcus sneered, "This lunatic really is crazy. Good thing Bella brought the doctor. Lock her up before she hurts someone." The guards advanced, ready to grab me. Just as I was about to be dragged into the basement, a steady male voice rang out, "Let her go." "What are you all doing?" I knew who it was. Clearly, the doctor who diagnosed me with a mental illness, and Marcus recognized him too. However, Isabella did not. She glared at him defiantly. "Who are you, and what are you doing in my house?" The man was Victor, an old friend of mine and my late husband. He also happened to be the boss of the very doctor who had falsely diagnosed me. In fact, he was the owner of all the private hospitals in the city. The doctor shrank back, trembling, hoping Victor hadn't noticed him. But how could that be possible? Victor walked up to him, glanced at his name tag, and asked, "How much did they pay you?" The doctor trembled even more violently. "And no one paid me." Bam! Victor's fist landed squarely on his nose, causing blood to gush out. "Get out. You're fired. You'll never practice medicine again. Pulling a stunt like this? Violating medical ethics? No one in the country will ever hire you again." The doctor immediately fell to his knees, shaking like a leaf, and scrambled out as fast as he could. Isabella looked like she was about to explode. Just as her plan was about to succeed, Victor showed up and ruined everything. She screamed, "Who the hell do you think you are? Barging into my house and acting crazy?" Victor squinted at her dangerously. "Who the hell do you think you are? Is this even your house? Take a good look around. Who does this house belong to?" Isabella crossed her arms defiantly, the diamond ring on her finger glinting under the light. "Walter, call the police. Someone's trespassing." Walter, ever the lackey, pulled out his phone, but Marcus quickly grabbed his arm. "Put that away. Do you even know who he is?" Walter, clueless as ever, hesitated. Victor had been abroad for years and rarely returned. Victor glanced at me, then turned his gaze to the diamond ring on Isabella's hand. Slowly, he stepped in front of her. Isabella, intimidated by his presence, backed up several steps. "Marcus, stop him. He's going to assault me." Isabella shrieked. Victor let out a derisive laugh. Her? Really? She thinks every man wants her. Marcus quickly stepped between them, bowing his head apologetically. Mr. Victor, I'm so sorry. My girlfriend didn't recognize you. But why are you here? Victor shoved him aside roughly. Get lost, Marcus. My brother must have been blind to leave the family estate in your hands. Is this how you treat his wife? Marcus's face turned red with embarrassment. He thought Victor was referring to his relationship with Isabella and stammered, Mr. Victor, Bella and I are truly in love. I swear, we only got together after he passed away. We never betrayed him while he was alive. Victor laughed coldly, looking between me and Isabella. You're saying she's my sister-in-law? Marcus nodded uncertainly. Isn't she? Pushing past Marcus, I watched as Isabella tried to retreat further. But Victor grabbed her hand, yanking the diamond ring off her finger. Damn it, this is my sister-in-law's wedding ring. How dare you wear it? Isabella clutched the ring tightly, yelling, Get lost. It's mine. I've worn it for 2 years. I am Emily. If this isn't mine, whose is it? Slap. Victor's hand struck her across the face, sending her sprawling to the ground. Get the hell out of here. I've only been abroad for a couple of years, and you think I've forgotten who my sister-in-law is? If she hadn't called me, I wouldn't have known how badly you've been treating her. Who do you think you are, messing with my brother's wife? Do you even know what happens when you cross me? Victor turned to me and handed me the ring. Emily, I've only been gone 2 years, and you've let them treat you like this. I smiled faintly. In truth, these past 2 years, I had been lost in grief and lethargy, unwilling to care about anything. That's how Isabella had seized the opportunity. At first, she had only helped me manage the household. But gradually, she became dissatisfied, convinced she was the true mistress of the house, the real Emily. She thought she could control me, turning me into her servant. But now I was awake. Isabella would never have another chance. Marcus, finally putting the pieces together, stammered, So, Isabella, you're not Lucas's wife? And the person you called a servant is actually... He trailed off, too stunned to finish. Isabella was still denying everything. No, I am Emily. Walter and Martha can vouch for me. I have a son, my husband's son. I can call him out right now. He always calls me Mom. That can't be wrong. Ridiculous. She was still clinging desperately to the identity of Emily, unwilling to let go. I stood before her and asked, Your son? The one you keep talking about? Where is he now? Isabella immediately screamed, Walter. Bring Lucas out here. Quickly, let them see him, so they'll finally give up. Let them know who the real mistress of this house is. Walter, bless his naive heart, was still running errands for her at this point. Martha grabbed him by the arm. Walter, can't you see what's happening? Emily has woken up. The real Emily is back. Isabella is nothing but a fraud. How much longer are you going to help her? Walter's lips trembled. But she promised us. She said she'd cover my son's tuition fees. If I don't help her, what can I do? Looking at Walter's foolish expression, I couldn't help but remind him, Do you really think Isabella has any money of her own? Have you ever stopped to consider where the salary she gave you came from? Or the tuition fees she promised? Think about it. You're not dealing with someone as generous as me, who treats her staff like family. Walter's eyes widened in sudden realization. He turned sharply toward Isabella. You said you'd pay my son's tuition fees. Well, then, hand over a year's worth right now. If you can do that, I'll bring Luke out. Isabella didn't have a dime. I had already canceled her access to the secondary credit card. She couldn't scrape together a single dollar. Yet, she kept up her bravado. Haven't I been generous enough with you all before? Haven't I paid you double your salary every month? Now go bring Lucas out. Honestly, the sheer stupidity of it all annoyed me. Not wanting to waste another second, I pulled out my phone. Looking for Lucas? Don't bother searching the house. And don't even think about using him to threaten me. It's pointless. Isabella, you keep claiming he's your son, but do you even know where he is right now? What kind of mother doesn't know where her so-called son is? Realizing she had lost her final bargaining chip, Isabella resorted to sheer desperation. Emily, give me back my son. Where have you hidden him? You're jealous of my life, envious of my happiness. I can give you money, but you can't take my son. Give him back to me. She clung to Marcus, pleading, Marcus, don't believe them. Help me find my son. I'll transfer all my shares in the company to you right away if you just help me. Please help me. Marcus, the fool, was obviously tempted by the offer of 60% of the company shares. But he hesitated, uncertain, and didn't dare make a move in front of me. Hand over Luke, he said. We won't pursue this further. I promise we won't send you to jail. How kind of him. I couldn't be bothered to deal with his stupidity. This was the kind of person who'd run a company into the ground. My son? A simple DNA test will prove he's mine. There's no need for all this drama. I may have been distracted from home matters these past 2 years, but that doesn't mean I've lost my mind. Isabella thought I was an idiot, but in reality, she was just grasping at straws. The audacity to impersonate me, unbelievable. I turned to Victor. Victor, call for an emergency board meeting. The Lu Corporation has a new chairwoman. Victor nodded immediately. Emily, it's about time. You should have stepped forward long ago. Your husband has been gone for 2 years now. Yes, I said, my voice steady. He's been gone for 2 years. In that time, I may have been lost in grief, but I never gave up on one thing, finding the person responsible for his death. The one who hit him with their car and then jumped into the sea to disappear. For 2 years, they've been missing. But Victor has brought me good news. I glared at Isabella, who was now cowering on the floor. Isabella, I've brought an old friend of yours. Would you like to see who it is? Isabella shrank even further into herself, but stubbornly repeated, I am Mrs. Lu. No matter who you bring, I am Emily. I am Mrs. Lu. I have money, lots and lots of money. I have a mansion and company shares. I'm the wealthiest woman in the world. Her delusions continued unabated. Marcus, however, finally snapped out of his daze. He stared at Isabella with wide eyes before delivering a resounding slap across her face. You liar! You deceived me. She's the real Emily. Who are you? Who are you to impersonate her all this time? Isabella kept repeating, I am Mrs. Lu. I'm rich. I'm the real Mrs. Lu. I'm not some lowly servant. I'm the mistress, the wealthy Mrs. Lu. Marcus finally understood. He was disgusted, as if he'd swallowed a fly. Overcome with rage and regret, he slapped himself repeatedly in front of me. Mrs. Lu, I'm so sorry. I was blind. I didn't recognize you. Please forgive me. I only met you briefly at the funeral, and then she deliberately approached me, pretending to be you. I was tricked, truly tricked. I never meant to insult you. It was all her doing. Whether intentional or not, Marcus was entirely unfit to manage Lu Corporation. For someone in such a high position, he couldn't even recognize the true mistress of the house. If wealthy socialites couldn't see through Isabella's poor acting, that was one thing. But Marcus? As a high-ranking executive, how could you be so blind, Marcus? Let me just say that the 60% stake has clouded your judgment. You're fired. Go pack your things. Marcus was unwilling to accept this. He had worked tirelessly for years to climb to his current position. How could he give it all up so easily? After slapping himself 20 times in desperation, he suddenly fell to his knees before me. Emily, please don't fire me. I beg you. I can expose Isabella's heinous crimes to the public and testify for you. No need. Really, no need. I didn't want to look at him for another second. With a cold voice, I simply said, "Get out, Marcus. Leave now before I decide to send you to prison. Get out." He fled, terrified. He knew that apologizing to me wouldn't have much consequence. However, the fact that he and Isabella had been conspiring to embezzle company assets was a crime I could use to send him to prison for over a decade. As Marcus tried to leave, Isabella grabbed his hand in panic. "You can't go, Marcus. You can't leave me." Marcus kicked her hard in the stomach. "Damn it. You've been fooling me for ages. Just wait until I deal with you." Isabella cried out in pain and let go. Marcus bolted out of the room as if his life depended on it. Victor entered the room with a man, whom he threw to the ground right next to Isabella. Isabella gasped and froze when she saw who it was. "You. Why are you here?" The man was none other than Kevin, Isabella's husband, the same husband she had accused of domestic violence. Isabella turned pale as a sheet, trembling uncontrollably. Kevin, on the other hand, seemed delighted to see her. He let out a sinister laugh. "Huh? A whore like you? If I go down, I'm taking you with me." Out of nowhere, Kevin pulled out a small knife and stabbed Isabella without hesitation. "You cheated on me, called me abusive, and ruined me. You think I wouldn't kill you after all that?" Kevin stabbed her again and again, blood spilling everywhere. Isabella, already unable to move, grew weaker with each strike. I stared at him in horror, my voice trembling with rage. "Tell me, why? Why did you run my husband down? Why?" Kevin paused for a moment, then laughed maniacally. "He deserved it. You're the ones who took Isabella in, that conniving whore. Your family had so many guards, so many people, I couldn't get close. But I had to kill her. She cheated on me, lied about me, and I couldn't let it go. I saw her get into your husband's car, so I rammed it. But when I hit the car, she wasn't inside. I swear I saw her get in. It all became clear to me. Isabella had known Kevin was hunting her down and wanted her dead. She stayed locked inside the house, avoiding him. She must have faked getting into my husband's car, luring Kevin into ramming it. But at some point, she must have snuck out of the car. Kevin ended up killing my husband instead and then went into hiding. Isabella had orchestrated everything. Her scheming was meticulous, calculated. Later, she even rose to take over the family business, replacing me. She was ruthless, heartless, and beyond redemption. Unable to contain my fury, I slapped her face over and over again. Victor pulled me back. "Don't waste your energy. She won't survive this." And he was right. Isabella died. Marcus ran away. Kevin was arrested. But the one who truly lost his sanity was Walter, who had witnessed the entire ordeal. His son had to drop out of school due to financial troubles and was forced to return home. Enraged, the boy set fire to their house, killing everyone inside. Standing by my husband's grave, I whispered, "It's all my fault. I was the one who took Isabella in, and she caused your death." A cool breeze swept past as Victor placed a comforting hand on my shoulder. "Your husband wouldn't blame you, Emily. You need to live on for Lucas. He's your husband's legacy." I nodded, tears streaming down my face. I had failed my husband and let Lucas down for 2 years. I needed to pick myself up and start over again,